Go on, fellas. It's been a little while. Married Man Sex Life Primer. We're getting into the evil stuff right now. I was talking about it this morning. Everybody always talks about manipulation. Well, here it is. Back to it. How's everybody doing? All right. Left off last time with the greatest cliffhanger ever for guys in relationships, and it's called behavior modification. Couple things. Now, I was talking about this earlier. When you talk to somebody who's, quote unquote red-pilled, or at least they say they're red-pilled, usually what happens at some point, manipulation will come up in a conversation. It's somebody's angry ex-wife. It's some rabid feminist. It's some cherry-picked simp-like man who thinks that women are made of sugar and spice and everything nice, and how dare you disrespect her. Here's the thing, though. You get two kinds of answers. You get the guys who aren't quite there yet, and then you get the red-pilled answer. So for guys who aren't quite there yet, usually what they do, once you get an accusation of being manipulative, is they say, no, it's not being manipulative. It's just being your best version of yourself, or it's just self-improvement, or all these ways to minimize things. The red-pilled answer is, so what? Now, what the hell? What does that mean? That sounds pretty Machiavellian. I thought this was like guys just being guys. I didn't think it was something evil. Like, look, everything in life is manipulation. A baby cries to get you to pick her up. That's manipulation. A dog yelps because you'll go check what's wrong. That's manipulation. Your girl cries because she knows you'll freak out and try to protect her. That's manipulation. A girl says, my boyfriend can kick your ass. She talks to that guy to get him to back off. That's manipulation. Everything in life is manipulation. Everything. Manipulation is essentially persuasion. Well, it's essentially persuasion, but in the pejorative. But here's the point. Everybody's doing it, and we are more than happy to gloss over all of this. So what I'd say is sauce for the goose, Mr. Savick. Everybody else is manipulating you, so you should be fully aware of the effect that your actions and behavior have on other people, to the effect that you really need people to act more valuable towards you, and when they don't, well, then you can change your behavior accordingly, and most people will get the hint. It's kind of the way humans have socialized for God knows how many thousands of years. It's cave science. You'll just have to take my word for it. He even admits in here, behavior modification always sounds scary, but there are going to be guys in white lab coats giving rats electric shocks and giving notes on clipboards. In reality, though, it's always happening. Every time you have a social interaction with somebody, both you and the other person are performing some sort of behavior. If you get on the bus and pay the bus driver and take a seat on the bus, you're behaving like a bus passenger. The bus driver is behaving like a bus driver. So he goes to a bunch of examples here, and I just realized a lot of the times in these videos, I'll find a comment or two where guys are like, what are you reading? That's amazing. So if you don't see it, the book I'm talking about is right here, Married Man Sex Life Primer by Athol Kay. I'm pretty sure, if not, if there's no link in the description, it's very easy to pull up on Amazon. This is supplemental reading, so that way you can fully digest the stuff in there, because it's a fairly large book, and I notice a lot of guys are having problems putting two and two together with a lot of the concepts in here. So back to manipulation. The key here remains the same. You cannot change someone's behavior simply by asking for it. You can change your own behavior, and that can spark a change in her behavior. Those two core behavior changes are to make sure that you reward positive behavior and you do not reward negative behavior. Now, if that sounds very similar to reward good behavior or be attractive, don't be unattractive, well, you would be right, sir. That's pretty much the same thing applied to relationships. Now, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about rewarding positive behavior. One thing you must do is positively reward the sexual or other behavior you seek from your wife. This sounds simple, but it's very possible to totally screw up this whole thing accidentally if you're not somewhat mindful of this basic point. He actually uses a great example of the way most guys will screw this up when coming out of a dead bedroom and, fixing their relationship, however you want to define that. It's that they will have been turned down by their wife or girlfriend so many times that their changes start having a positive effect, and then she starts initiating. And at which point, that guy has this need for revenge and shoots her down, not realizing that he's not rewarding good behavior. He was literally getting what he wanted. But because his ego was so proud, and he was so wounded, and he so wanted revenge, that he essentially spited his own success in order to make a point that nobody was aware of. The example that Athol uses in the book is during a Saturday afternoon when their son's at a friend's house. Cindy gets the thought in her head to actually have sex with Mike. Happy and proud of herself, she seeks him out and makes an attempt to remove his belt and unbuckle his pants. Mike is taken somewhat unaware of her intention and asks, "What are you doing?" while bringing his arms up defensively. When she explains she was starting to smash, he goes, "Not now." And Cindy's butthurt by this. If you read earlier on, one of the earlier episodes here, I talked about how women take signs of sexual rejection as a display of lower value. Obviously, girls have hidden estrus cycle. You don't know when they're going to be ovulating. So they naturally select for the kind of guy who's always on and always ready at the drop of a hat. And just know, every time you give a sexual rejection, especially for petty reasons like this, it just comes across as a limbic brain display of lower value, and it does set you back, especially when you're building those alpha characteristics, because being always on is an alpha characteristic. That's why you see most of the sexualist guys you've ever met, even though I know that's not a word, tend to be the ones that people think of well, because they're always ready to go. He adds on to this one. Actually, you know what? I cannot stress this enough, so I'm going to stress it twice. There is a horrible, super common problem that guys have, especially when they're first learning to build frame. It's that they do not realize that their lack of frame and need for revenge is getting in the way of their own happiness. So, if you're getting what you want, stop looking to bring up some random grudge or get revenge for some stupid thing. Just take what you earned. Again, we hunt what we kill. Just because you missed the deer last hunt doesn't mean that the next time you could kill it, you decide not to teach it a lesson. Deer's not going to care, and neither's your wife in this scenario. One thing he does add, though, that's worth a second point is the right time to follow up with verbalized praise is the next day. So starting to act all grovelly right at the time, it's usually going to feel fake. Just enjoy the moment, live in the now. Again, I know David Dutton's book, Wisdom of Psychopaths, talks a lot about dark triad characteristics, and one of the best ones from a psychopath is focusing on the present moment. If you thought that was just for being Machiavellian and controlling your things here, it's like, no. In the case of enjoying yourself, same thing. Stop looking too much into it. Stop looking too far into the future. Just tomorrow, give some praise. Keep it simple. Next part, and this is equally, if not more so important, is to not reward negative behavior. I'm going to follow us up too with a nice post we had from the Married Red Pill. Now, if you're watching this after the fact, do open the live stream chat. You'll see it linked about this time, called Verbal Intercourse is Optional. So, as Athol puts here, if she declines sex and you have a temper tantrum, not only is it childish, but you turn her into somebody that can make you have a tantrum. I want to reinforce this point because this is not just about sex. This is about everywhere. And I am very surprised how many alpha leaders of men, patriarchs, all that kind of stuff get a little irritated with their wife and they have a little bit of a freak out. I remember a very popular Twitter personality mentioned how his wife was getting a little anxious, acting out, took her phone, smashed her phone. That'll teach her. Little did he know, this little temper tantrum that he kind of had here, even though he thought he was setting boundaries, what he's doing is he's signaling that I know how to make you rage. It's very easy, and she can push that button when she wants it, whether it's because she's bored and she wants that shot of dopamine, maybe it's a divorce case and she wants you to act like an idiot in front of the judge so you lose your thing, doesn't matter. The point is, the less predictable you are, the harder you are to manipulate. And by showing that you have temper tantrums during sexual denials, during her being bratty, during a frame test, during all of these reasons, you just need to show that she can't affect your emotions. Now, for some guys, it's hard. Some guys are raised to be adult children, and it's going to take some practice, but It's just something you have to do if you want to get past this. Nobody said being alpha was easy. And sometimes it is just as simple as that. That is to say, getting angry in and of itself isn't a bad thing. Being able to have controlled displays of emotion are always good. But they have to come on your terms, not the girls. So again, be careful not to frame it as please pay attention to me the way I am minimizing attention to what I didn't want to see. But simply that if you weren't going to do X, Y, and Z with her, you were just going to go ahead and do A, B, and C. If she wants to tag along with A, B, and C, she can, but you intend to do it regardless. It's just a natural consequence of her not to be with you. Now, what that means, and if you guys recognize that, it's probably from something I've referred to as the gym bag routine. It's the way I talk about this being applied. You're going to the gym. You're starting to work out. You're building up your sexual market value. Your wife, frigid, nagging, whatever. You decide, I'm going to go to the gym 5 o'clock every day. 4:59, you go and you hit on her. You hit on your wife, you want to smash. If or when she turns you down, all right, grab your gym bag, go to the gym. It's something you were going to do. You're training yourself to have a fulfilling life full of activities that you enjoy, and then you're enacting it. So it's literally practice. It's like I talk about it all the time on other live streams and the podcasts. It's an art called killology. It was something developed in between World War I and World War II. If you don't know, what happened during World War I is for training soldiers, they'd use bullseyes. And then they found in combat scenarios that people were actually not shooting at the enemy. They were shooting off warning shots. Like 75% of bullets were not aimed at the enemy. And turns out people have a hard time shooting people. Who'd have thunk? It turns out we're not all monsters. So what the military had come up with was a science about it. And they figured out, you shoot at silhouettes. And then when the time came to actually have to shoot at the enemy, your instinct of shooting at silhouettes would come through, and their effectiveness from a military standpoint was a lot better. So it just shows you can train things that aren't instinctive just so long as you detach it from the parts that you have issue with. So in this case, if you're learning how to stop rewarding negative behavior through boundary enforcement, in this one, you already had a plan to leave. This was literally you just practicing getting shot down so you can have something better to do. And again, you can't do this in like, take a look at me, mommy, I'm teaching you a lesson. We've had tons of examples of that where guys do some heinous stuff as like a way of teaching her a lesson. And our responses are always the same. So yeah, you sure showed her, man. You're the man. Go get him, Tiger. Guys kind of realize, self-aware ones that, all right, yeah, it is kind of a bit childish, isn't it? Yeah, it's just go do your thing. As soon as you start showing your temper tantrum there or your passive-aggressive nature, it's not only childish, but you turn her into somebody that can make you have a tantrum. Again, and for goodness sake, if she ever comes looking for you wearing lingerie, that's her initiating, you dumbass. Smash right there and then, no excuses, and make it good. Throw a little bit of beta in there. Before we move on, though, I want to talk about verbal intercourse is optional. It's a great post by Sexy Shoulder Devil, one of the older guys in the Married Red Pill. He's been around for forever. But here's the thing. A lot of guys have a hard time understanding what we're talking about when we talk about boundary enforcement or not rewarding good behavior in this way. He says you need not engage. Now, he makes an example of your wife wants to have a fight with you, and then she persists and chases you around the house with her raging emotions, trying to initiate verbal intercourse, aka talking. It's simple. Give her a hard no. If you want to have a conversation, if you don't want to have a conversation, saying not having a conversation, end of story, leave the room. If she persists and follow you, hard no, remove herself from your presence. And the way he helps guys understand that is picture if you walked up, initiated with your wife, and she shot you down for whatever reason. In the same way that a guy's wife is chasing him around the house trying to start a conversation or have a fight, picture that as if you were trying to have sex and you're chasing her around with a rock-hard erection all around the house. You'd probably get arrested. So once you understand that a woman's need for validation and conversation is the same as a guy's need for sex, in this framework anyway, it kind of lets you understand that just because a girl is talking doesn't mean you have to respond. Again, verbal intercourse is optional. Now, moving on. Catching her being good. And this is just be appreciative. Say thank you. Appreciate the things she does. Positive praise. Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of the thing you do with a child. You're taking their finger painting and you're putting it on the fridge, but you know what? If you want to reward good behavior and not reward bad behavior, well then you're going to have to suck up your pride and just show some gratitude. I don't think it's that controversial a thing to show, but for a lot of guys, they assume alpha male means you have to be some absolute stoic guy who never says anything or nothing and don't respond to nothing and don't soften up. It's like, dude, it's fine. You want to get what you want, or do you want to look like an alpha male? If you want to get what you want, well, do what you do. He even admits it too. So Athol says, this doesn't sound very alpha male and sounds very supplicating, but it's actually somewhat of a dominant display. You're not asking for something or asking for permission. You're thanking her for acts of service you have already received. Again, you are thanking her for acts of service you've already received. Already received. If you don't remember, there's something called Brifault's law in this space. I'll pull that up and quote it for you precisely here because I always suck at memorizing it. I'm sure if you guys have been here a while, you probably know already what it is, though. So it maintains that the female, not the male, determines all the conditions of the animal family. Where the female can derive no benefit from the association of the male, no such association takes place. On top of that, it also has a corollary where it's anything promised, it becomes null and void as soon as your side of the deal is done. So if you punish good behavior, you're ultimately starting to force her into thinking about engaging in bad behavior, if only in an attempt to get you to pay attention to her. Often this is why women test their men. Sometimes a fitness test is just a play for attention. Again, think about that. If you decide to smash your girl's phone every time she completely drives you nuts, then think about that. Was that the most cost-effective way to offer a little bit of dopamine? Probably not. Next part is highly problematic behavior. Now this carries on too because bad behavior can become highly problematic behavior if left unattended, or if you become too predictable, if you constantly give displays of lower value like losing frame, having a tantrum, childish behavior, that sort of thing. He uses a great example in here, and before this one, there's a great story by this guy, Ultimate Cat. Again, one of the very, very old guys from the Married Red Pill. Haven't seen him around in forever, but I hope he's listening to this one. He went out to dinner with his wife, and his wife was copping a huge attitude. He just realized, and I don't know how it worked out, but he's been establishing his frame for like the last year at the time here. Very harsh by some standards, but told her to stop. She didn't stop. So he got up and he left. I guess, and this is the part he kind of got a chuckle out of, she didn't bring her wallet. So she's stuck there at the restaurant without a wallet. Meals are coming. Needless to say, she learned not to disrespect him in public like that anymore. How did it all sort out? And he goes, she's an adult. She could figure it out. And I guess she did. Nobody got arrested, so... he uses the example here, Athol Kay does anyway, where girls being late. Where you want to be at an event, and they spend so much time on their makeup or whatever, that they end up making you like 45 minutes late for an event. So first thing he says is you give her a warning shot about the lateness and frame it as, I am late, and that's not acceptable to me. Notice there from a frame perspective, it's all about you. Nothing to do with her, no blame, no accusations. Don't fire warning shots against her ego, because then this whole thing devolves. It's not a very refined way to handle this. Again, I'm late, that's not on. If you're late for a second event together, give her a second warning. I've already addressed this before, I won't address this again. Obviously word this in your own way. This is kind of a weird way of wording it, but if I'm late again, I'm going to leave you behind and you can find your own way. If she wants to debate that, just tell her there's nothing more to talk about. Remember, verbal intercourse is optional. Nothing to talk about. Not having a conversation. And she can chase you around with her raging emotion erection as much as she wants to. She's just ain't going to get there. You're just telling her what's going to happen. It's like a law of the universe. For the third event, you just leave. Don't even tell her that you're leaving. Just go. If she gets into a pattern of ignoring fair warnings in the future, you should skip the second warning and jump straight to consequence. Notice, though, he didn't smash her phone. He didn't have a childish temper tantrum. He didn't get mad because she didn't do what she wanted. He just went and did his own thing. And she can deal with the natural consequences of that. It's a very powerful lesson because you'll get accused of being an ass. That's just the way it is. But, next time be on time. I told you 3 days in advance. Now, of course, you have to expect a counterattack when you do this. People rarely give up bad behavior without a fight. Again, I use the example of my dogs all the time. He turns out he can jump just high enough to swipe anything on the first 4 inches of the counter and eat it. So we left a loaf of bread up there once. Dog ate a loaf of bread. 17-pound dog, 4-pound loaf of bread. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. Problem is now the next 100 times we come home, he goes and jumps on that counter when we're not looking. And sure enough, unless we do it 100 times in a row, he's going to keep jumping. But that's the problem, is that people aren't perfect. We usually will leave something up there just the once, and that reinforces it again. So trying to get that dog to stop swiping food off the counter is the same as to stop getting your wife break your boundaries. It's going to get worse before it gets better. He makes a good point here. So leaving her behind may turn that unforgivable sin, and she may well scream at you. In that moment, you have to realize that her behavior is rude, and she is blaming you for not supporting her rudeness. Also, she may well arrive 40 minutes late and mad as a snake and start ripping you up verbally in public for leaving her behind. Now, that's a whole other level of socially inappropriate behavior. But again, apologize to the guests, take your leave. How you want to enforce that one, it's up on you. But for me, there's not many hard and fast red flags for any length of a relationship than berating a partner in public. It's one of those few things. I would put that about as close to cheating as you can get for a non-cheating behavior. So again, these are your boundaries. You set them how you want. And he follows up with natural consequences. The solution is usually to not support the negative behavior and just allow the natural consequences to occur. That way you're not actually punishing the other person, you're just not saving them from their own bad behavior. Also, you aren't wasting your own time and effort or rewarding them with extra attention. I'll give you a practical example of this one too. Finances. Most relationships come up and the girl will suggest, well, we're getting married, or we're in a relationship now, we should split our finances, share the bills. Don't do that. I'm telling you right now. Most girls are absolutely horrible with money. Paycheck to paycheck kind of horrible. Appies on Tuesday and Wednesdays kind of horrible. Completely horrible. Remember when I was signing up for a new bank when I moved to Eastern Canada, and the banker I was talking to there saw, my investments and all this stuff. She goes, wow, it's like, I'm impressed. I'm like, what's so impressive about this? It's like, yeah, most times when guys get together with a girl, they end up having at least like 10,000, 20,000 in debt, and they have no assets. And I'm like, oh. Yeah, and it was funny. Then the other bankers and the other, not the tills, like the back offices, they started coming out telling me stories. I was like, you guys should be telling me customer information like this? And they're like, oh, it's fine. You don't know who any of them are. Plus, it was Montreal. Nobody cares. But yeah, imagine from a financial standpoint, not supporting negative behavior. Separate finances. I know it's obviously the best advice to have this conversation before you even get together, but here's what usually happens. Guys will get to a point where they're emotionally hooked on a girl. They want to bring her in. They think it's great. Then, once they're hooked, that's when they find out she's got 20 grand in credit card debt or something stupid like that. So to ask most guys to just throw that away for something that isn't directly damaging at the moment, most guys aren't willing to go there. And if you are, good for you. Some guys are like, you know what? Don't support her behavior and just allow the natural consequences to occur. In this case, pay your own debt. If that cuts her finances down to a certain amount, well, that's the amount that you have to live off of, you like 50-50 or whatever. So yeah, you'll have a smaller place. She won't have Appy. She doesn't get that car she wants. Again, the natural consequences of her behavior. Split finances are wonderful for this. You have a joint account with a pot in the middle. If she decides to overspend and can't afford things, well, then, natural consequences. Now, if it's at the point that it starts to affect you, I would put that up there with the girl that was berating the guy in front of her friends. Berating him in public. I would say knowing your guys' budget and just blowing it there just to make a point, it's probably a nukeable offense. His example's a little tamer though. Say your wife's terrible at getting up in the morning and oversleeps for work unless you wake her up. Also, you complain to her that you have to wake up and you have arguments about having to do it. She blames you for being late if you don't wake her up. The solution? Don't wake her up and let the natural consequence of her being late to work kick in. That's the problem with a lot of girls, is that so many guys want to be Captain Save-A-Ho. They want to be White Knight McConaughey. They go out of their way to make sure a girl does not suffer the consequences of her actions because they think they're saving her. But they're not doing that. And every ex-boyfriend before you has probably done that same thing. Every dad that's done it, who looks at his girl like she's the best princess in the world, has all done it. All of them are doing it. What we are doing as a gender is conditioning women to have zero consequences for their actions. I mean, we can complain about the thought apocalypse all we want, but at the end of the day, if you learn nothing else from this, learn this. We created that. Women will act as shitty as you let them. Again, that's a great quote from Archwinger. If you're watching this live after the fact, I'm going to put this in the chat as well. Again, it's a nice supplemental read. Helps guys understand where we're coming from. Post, damn you. All right, hopefully it's made it there by now. I got to get back to this. The golden rule of sex rank, by the way. This is the part I really disagree with Athol on here. It's only like a one-line offer, but I feel it's important to mention. And he talks about the natural consequences. Never force an ultimatum on your wife if she's hotter than you. Due to the field experience that a lot of guys have had, this is a completely incorrect statement. The correct statement is the golden rule of sex rank is never force an ultimatum ever. An ultimatum is the ultimate expression of powerlessness. It means you have no way to persuade, no carrot to dangle, no stick to use. You can't pull away the carrot. There's no positive, no negative reinforcements. The only thing you have is throwing yourself on the pyre. Please think of the ultimatum and just picture adding pretty please at the end of it, because that's how other people hear it. And if you're at the point you have to give one, well, the answer is already no. So when it sounds like manipulation, this stuff sounds fairly straightforward. Nothing too fancy, right? Well, that's the problem. I'm using tame examples now, for the most part, because we're on YouTube. I don't want to freak out the kids. And then, to be fair, there's somebody in the chat here saying, to correct me there, thank you for the correction, people will act as shitty as you let them. This is Married Man Sex Life Primer. Not, I really don't care about the behavior of guys. That's not the point of this one. I don't feel the need to equate this stuff. Right now, the focus is on a guy in a struggling relationship and things you can do to either right the ship or move on. So I really don't care about the behavior of men. There's only one man that should matter to you, and that's your own behavior. If you want to talk about how people act crappy in business, that's fine. I'm sure there's other channels that have that. Which is going to get me to the point I'm going to make for you right now. And this is something extremely common. I didn't do that to call them out, but yes, Virginia, you do have to be an asshole. And this is exactly what I was talking about right at the beginning. It's a great post from Whisper, again, one of the OG guys from the space. So first they called you delusional for thinking such red-pilled behavior might work. Then they swore that these tricks would never, ever, ever work on them because they weren't party sluts or damaged or any of those other pejorative terms they throw. Now, the beratement from these guys, from a lot of Karens or middle-aged soccer moms or, arguments on Twitter is, isn't there some way for men to look out for their own best interests without being so savage, harsh, or brutal to women? To which you, being sane, introspective, and analytical sort of man, are tempted to respond with something like, it's not savage, it's just looking out for your own interests. A guy who has standards like this is unfortunately seen as some sort of devil, and that anything that isn't pro-male or put the woman first is considered heinous in today's society. So stop that. Stop that. Stop justifying yourself. Stop deering. Stop defending, excusing, explaining, or rationalizing. You're supposed to agree and amplify, but you don't because deep down you're not an asshole, and you don't want to be an asshole. Well, crush that dream. You have to be willing to, and you have to be willing to be evil like this. Why? Because that statement where anything that isn't pro-male or put the woman first is considered heinous in today's society is dead wrong. It's not today's society. It's not a plot. It's not from leftists or feminists or communists or conservatives or anybody trying to sap and impurify our precious bodily fluids. That's actually the wording he used here, which is hilarious. He was like 2 years ahead of semen retention, but whatever. It's hardwired into the human genome. Cave Chad was hardwired to be more sympathetic to girls because tribes that didn't protect women via male sacrifice died off. So not only is it built into everyone out there to call you an ass if you're looking after your own self-interest, it's also built into you, and it requires extensive brainwashing to overcome. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So unless you are comfortable not only being called the bad guy, but actually being him in these situations, and don't kid yourself, any of these boundary enforcement examples I was talking about, finances, living, lateness, all that, you will be the bad guy, and you have to be okay with that. So you'll never be able to put your own interests before those of some chick you just met 3 days ago who doesn't care about you unless she wants your, dick, attention, or money. And that's how people are. That's how you are. So the real answer to that question is no. There is no way for men to look out to their own interests without being so savage, harsh, or brutal to women. Not because harsh, savage, or brutal simply means men looking out for their own interests. Not only to feminists, not only to society, not only to women, but to everybody. So the answer should be selected from, you guys have a great couple examples here. Don't care, got laid. Yep, I'm an asshole, raised by wolves. I don't recall asking your opinion. We prefer the term ethically challenged or any other response that indicates that you don't care. You being an asshole isn't a bad thing. At all. Again, this is hardwiring and you got to get past it. Back to the work though. So the next part is not being a chump. And this is something everybody can get behind. I know Rolo's had a whole episode about chumps. We're going to briefly go over it here because I think we got just enough time. Oh, tons of time. So just to be clear, and this has to do with like girls asking favors of you. The classic one is, hey, can you go get me a glass of water? To which you should respond, are your legs broken? So just to be clear, if her request was a reasonable one and something that you would do for anyone, it's not being a chump to comply. But it is being a chump when she holds out sexual cheese and you run through it like a rat in a maze to get it, and then when you get to the end, she says there's no cheese. Anytime a girl tries to bribe you into doing anything with sex, automatically just know you're not going to get any. That's an absolute trap, and girls know exactly what they're doing. Again, wives can do the same thing to their husbands. If she sexually entices you to go do something for her, and then you go do it and get nothing, then you're a chump. Wives know exactly what they're doing when they do this. To add insult to injury, by agreeing to marry you, she was already promising you a sex life. So in this case, she was negotiating further with you on something she had already agreed to give you and then didn't give it to you anyway. You're a double chump. Quote me on that. Hashtag double chump. The solution to all this is pretty simple though. Payment in advance, properly assured, or she can do it her own damn self. This way you can save yourself time and just skip to the end where you don't have sex with her. I always laugh at that one. Makes me chuckle. But yeah, no. You can't let sex be used as a weapon against you, because that is how most guys turn into their own worst enemy. It's sabotage to the nth degree. Again, the corollary to Brifault's law. She can promise anything she wants. Once she gets what she wants, the contract's null and void. Just keep that in mind. While some guys, I refer to them as PowerPoint MGTOWs, like to do that as a statement of powerlessness, as in, we can't get anything and nothing's ever going my way. I take it as a statement of empowerment. That just says, I can reward good behavior, but I don't accept promises. And you're going to notice this too. Again, you're going to get bad behavior the first time. First time I did it, same thing. My girl was, got mad at me. How dare you turn this down? Treated it as a sexual rejection. But Ryan just said you're not supposed to ever give sexual rejections. Yeah, well, at this point, you got to pick which is better for you. Do you want to have the carrot dangled in front of you? And it's not even a sexual rejection anyway, because you're not going to get any. It's just strict manipulation. Sometimes if there's a conflict, look at it from a very objective perspective. What do I want? In this case, I don't want to get you that damn glass of water. Are your legs broken? I haven't smashed in like 6 days. I don't got time for this. And that's fine. You're allowed to be ornery. If you start getting the itch and you're in a relationship and she shot you down 3 times, like, I'm not in the mood to go fetch water. Anyways, map that to your situations as you see fit. Go do your thing. I won't stand in your way. Go be happy and multiply, or at the very least, stop trying to be bribed into multiplying and then end up dividing. There's a math joke for you nerds. Next party goes into Shrek, Donkey, and the Princess Fiona plan. It's not really important from this. He mentions, though, it's good for screening women, too, when you're first dating. It's one of his things, which I don't... It's not mine, but try it out. Take a read through the whole thing, see if you like it. And the idea is, you're talking to a girl, you say, if I was Shrek, would you be the donkey or would you be Princess Fiona? And it's pretty much as soon as you ask that, assuming she knows the movie reference, she knows what you're actually asking are you ready to smash or are you sexually interested? And if her answer is Princess Fiona, then you escalate. Again, that's with everything. Always be escalating. ABE. There's no reason not to. Again, Being highly sexual at all times is an alpha trait. Pour it out whenever you can. If you got nothing else to do, it doesn't mean you have to smash every second of every day, but at least be flirting. Again, build up that buying temperature over time. If you start with like a cupping her on the bottom in the morning, sending an eggplant emoji in the middle of the day, and then at the end of the day, fooling around, touch and leave, kiss and leave, whatever. It eventually builds up. Then by the end of the night, you're good to go. I think we're going to stop, though, on Chapter 13, Sexual Judo. This part's a bit of a tragic section. So if you have a lower sex rank than your wife, though, much of her sex drive is going to look like it's just drying up on you. She's not going to just feel in the mood and be confused by this as you are. But it's very important to understand that while she sees you as less sexually responsive, her sex drive will continue on fairly unchanged. She might diddle herself a lot when you're not around, or she might not. But when a sexier man comes within her frame of reference, she might become very interested in him very quickly. Husbands discovering affairs are hurt at the deceit of the affair, but are also utterly shocked at the depth of her sexual response to her lover. The same husband who angrily complains that she just lies there and never does anything can barely comprehend the hidden camera at the end of her squealing and bouncing on top of some guy. She said blowies were disgusting, but there she is, bobbing up and down. It's a cruel stab to the chest to suddenly understand what she meant by giving blowjobs to you is disgusting. Again, it's kind of a corollary to Ryan's rule. Anytime she says she feels something, always add right now at the end. Anytime she says she won't do something, always add with you at the end. It's one of the worst things you'll see is a community called Dead Bedrooms. They're absolutely horrible. And they come up with this idea. One sec. Paul, thank you, by the way, for the 20 CHF super chat. I don't know what a CHF is, but no comment, just tipping. Well, thank you very much, sir. Anyway, so for the Dead Bedrooms guys, they have this concept of high libido and low libido, and they consider it's a mismatched libido thing, as if it's like a law of the universe, not understanding that a girl's libido is reactive. So you can take it on as it's not my fault, or it's to blame, or who's this, and you can talk about it however a child wants to talk about it. But here's the point. Girls' sex drives are responsive. So if she's not receptive to you, then there is something that you need to address, assuming you want to get laid. Girls can't just will it to happen. Kind of iffy if I should post this one in here, but I think I will too. It's another great one by Archwinger. Here's hoping. Every unhappy wife is a struggle-hugging victim. I think you can do the math. Again, come into live chat. You'll see me post it right about now on this timestamp. That'll explain it much better than I could. I'm not going to read it out here because that'll get this thing demonetized faster than you can believe. But just know, they're reactive. It's not a frontal lobe process for them. Girls feel into it and they go into it. Otherwise, it taps into that whole other genre of feelings. You don't want to go there. That's how you end up with resentful, weaponized wives. All this divorce rape talk we're talking about. That's how it comes out. He brings up other sections here like protection shields and sexual judo. Read it for yourself. It's not super important for the topic at hand, but I will end on 13.4. Her orgasm is not your responsibility. How she does it is best left up to her, and allow her to not on occasion. What this means is if you're getting what's called starfish or duty sex, and that's where the girl just lays there, lets it happen, literally the minimum amount of time it takes for her not to think that you're going to try and divorce her, then just realize that she's like, again, struggle hugging. It's not exactly struggle hugging, but it taps into the same feelings, and that's why that resentment builds up. And that's why Karen is so ornery out there. She hasn't had pipe laid properly. Doesn't have the feelings behind it, so they take it out on everybody's manager. Sometimes the way to get out of that, there's two ways. The two strategies we come up with, and they're both polar opposites, but achieve the same result. The first one, get up. Don't be mad. All right, you know what? This isn't working for me. Maybe another time. The idea of that rejection right there snaps a girl out of it because they always have this assumption that just by being available, that's the only value they have to offer. And then you're establishing a boundary. No. It's not it. But you're not being mad about it. You're not having those temper tantrums. You're not showing that you're butt mad, and it's very predictably a way to get you angry by sexually denying you. You're just saying, Not feeling it. Get up, get dressed, go do something else. The second way is just go to town. Completely ignore any thoughts of pleasure from the girl's side. Go, get in, get out. They call it cavemanning. Either one works. That one taps more into the alpha behaviors. The idea that, if you guys don't remember, we talked about it a couple episodes ago, where a female orgasm is actually seen as a beta trait, as a comfort building one. Now, if it's a case where you're in a sexually deprived bedroom, you have way too many comfort traits and not enough alpha traits. In this case, going to town and leaving her unsatisfied, funnily enough, an alpha trait. That signals top tier man, he's got things to do, he's got places to go. It taps into the dopamine, not so much the serotonin or oxytocin. That's what the orgasm's for. But whatever. If she wants better behavior, she can act better and earn your beta traits, because they have to be a gift. If they're not, then you're just wasting your time. You're giving away it for free. It's like Patrice O'Neill used to say, he'd call you a time hoe. Either one works. Guys have tried both. Both have had very similar results. At this point, I would argue it's mostly personal preference, but why not use both? Try one, try the other. Give it a shot in your own relationship, see what happened. Come back, let me know. I'm always available on like Twitter or Reddit or here. Somewhere that's not cancer, preferably, but whatever. He does make mention at the end, too, about 30% of what you try works. Most women are bad in bed, most men are too. And the beauty about being married is that you can experiment. Just don't be worried about making mistakes, because 3 times out of every 4 you're going to be anyway. Just know, keep trying it. Eventually you'll find the things that work, and you just stick to those. And they're going to be different for every girl. Guys, a lot of guys you find out though when they're single spinning plates, that there are some universal things to help with everybody. I'm not going to get into super details here, but I'd love to hear it in the non-demonetizable chat. What universal rules when it comes to smashing you find work well for you. Pass it on to everybody else. Please, stuff you've actually tried. I don't want to hear what you read out of whatever magazine. And he's got some other things that out under this. It's mostly like little sex tips. Again, I would argue this isn't the kind of thing you want to be reading in a book anyway, so skim through these if you find interest in it. But just try things out. See what works. Ah, Swiss franc. Okay, thanks, Shadow. I want to say danke, but I don't know if you're in the German, French, or Italian quarter. Danke, merci, or I don't know how to say it in Italian. Anyways, so that's it for this episode. Married Man Sex Life Primer. Tomorrow, we're following up with Variety is the Spice of Life, and then moving on past that. This is going to be all the kinky stuff. It's going to be about porn, all the goofy stuff you're seeing on Twitter about the temperance movements, semen retention, what you think about porn, what you think about drinking, and we're going to get all that stuff out of the way and show you that these guys are idiots and don't know what they're talking about. Shy wives, and as well as the ovulation game. So how do you play with that? There's going to be some stuff on there. It'll be a bit cringe, but you know what? If you're coming back from a dead bedroom, well, you're just going to have to be a little cringe to get things going. Just suck it up, Buttercup. Do you want to win, or do you want to look like you're not cringe? Besides, if you're not sleeping with her, she already thinks you're kind of a loser anyway. So what could go worse? Anyways, on that note, I'll leave you guys to this one. Thank you so much in the chat, by the way. I saw you guys. I read as many of your comments as I could. I know normally we have more chit chat, but you know, this one we're crushed for time. It turns out in about 15 minutes, I'm going to be on with Nick August. We're going to do the Burn It Down podcast. Check on Twitter. He's got the post up for there. Actually, he should have given that one to me too. Let me see if I can grab a link for you guys. Oh, looks like he forgot to send me a link. That's fine. We'll just pull it off and get it down to you. There it is. Let them burn. So I'm posting a link for this one in the live chat. Come on in, check it out. It's going to be a little more casual, a little more engaged, and I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Again, Married Man Sex Life Primer, Athol Kay, wonderful read. This is a supplement or crib sheet to the actual book, so don't use this in place of reading the book. Guaranteed, it will improve not just your relationship, but your ability to have relationships moving on in the future. On that note, I'll catch you on the next one. I should have found one of these ones with fall, but I don't think there's one where I can get leaves shown at the top of the skyscraper, so whatever. Oh yeah, Paul, I'd be curious, so let me know in the chat which quarter of Switzerland. French, German, Italian. Anyways, I'll see you guys in 15 minutes or tomorrow. Cheers.